Anyone who believes in indefinite growth on a physically finite planet is either mad or an economist.
We don't want to focus politics on a notion that involves the rejection of principles around which a large majority of our fellow citizens organize their lives.
We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think.
There was a study released last year in the US, and it basically said that 71% of the American workforce is not happy at work, is disengaged by their organization. 71% of people are not happy in what they're doing. And actually, a lot of this, technology is part of the problem. And I wanted to address that. I wanted to try and show people that there is a very different way to use technology in not just our professional lives, but our personal lives too, that really readdress that balance and get people much more engaged and more productive in what they do at work. So the first proposition is to understand that the world around us has completely changed, completely transformed. We forget this. And if you think about what you do in your personal lives, people are collaborating, they're communicating with friends, they shop online, they play games, they have this wonderful, rich experience of technology in their personal lives, and then they go into the office. And this is what happens. They get greeted typically by people like me in IT, long-haired, beardy gits, who just want to say, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that. No, that's not allowed. We've reached this place, the plateau of mediocrity. And that's where pretty much what we've got is good enough for what we need to do. So here's a personal computer in 2013. But these are still pieces of plastic and glass, right? You still use a keyboard, you still use a mouse. The way you use these devices has not changed in 30 years. You're still doing email, you're still writing word process documents, you're doing spreadsheets, presentations. And you can ask yourself a number of questions about why that is. Number one, well, actually, we're humans, right? We're focused by our past experiences. Everything that's happened to us in the past changes how we think about what we're going to do. And it stops us from changing. 142 years ago, you had a problem. You had typists using mechanical typewriters. And if they got too quick, if they got too good at their job, the heads would jam and that typist would lose productivity until the machine could be fixed. So somebody came up with this brilliant design, the QWERTY keyboard design, that slows typists down. It keeps them at a certain rate so they could never get any faster. Fast forward 142 years. Right? We live in a world of pervasive internet. We walk around with computers in our pockets that are more powerful than the computers that were on our desks just 5 years ago, and we still rely on, for our primary form of input to technology, a design that is not only 142 years old, its entire design principle was to be suboptimal. You know, this is how much we suck at change. So when we're surrounded with a world of technological advance, if we cannot evolve, if we cannot change the way we think about the jobs that we're doing, the tasks that we have, we're always going to be constrained. And there's some really important things about to happen to us in our professional workplace, driven by our personal experience, that make this a critical point for us, a reason that we really have to consider this change. We now have in our personal lives a really rich choice of technology and devices and products and services that we use. And they got so good that there came a point that we actually said, you know what, I want this at work. And typically, we've had a first generation of consumerization, and it was driven by devices. And if I want to be really honest, it was driven by the iPad. And now in my industry, we've had this whole wave of people trying to figure out how do you take these consumer devices and make them work inside the organization. My proposition to you about consumerization is we're about to enter a second generation of consumerization. That's not about devices anymore, it's about services. It's about using the things that you use every day in your personal life to have, to be productive, to communicate with your friends, to have fun, to be engaged by technology, and you start to use them inside the organization. You want to use them in the office to make a very different way of work. This is not about how do you get your company to use Facebook effectively. This is not about engaging with your customers in a new, novel way. This is about changing business processes. We're already seeing examples in the US of organizations using the social graph, the network of how people are connected to each other, to change their sales approach. They're looking at their salespeople. They're looking at who in their customers the salespeople are connected to. Then looking at the social graph powered by LinkedIn and Facebook, and they're saying, hang on a minute, you're talking to Bill. And actually, she's not connected to anybody. You should be talking to Sarah. And based on that information, they're then changing the sales prioritization. They're changing their CRM database. They're changing their business process because they understand the power of social. But what's underneath all of this is a genuinely new culture of collaboration. So when you use something like Facebook or Twitter, it doesn't have to be those platforms, you are using a fundamentally different culture of collaboration. You are saying pretty much, by default, everything I do is open, except for the bits that I choose to keep private. Contrast that to the standard, the culture of collaboration inside most organizations. It's completely inverted. Everything I do is closed unless I specifically say I'm going to share this. The change in that is absolutely profound. When you have people who are used to that sharing experience, that rich, friction-free way of sharing information, collaborating with their friends and family, and they join organizations and they cannot share in that way, trouble starts to happen. It also makes us realize how some of the way we live our working lives today has sort of become outdated. It's become out of place for the kind of society that we live in. We're in a world now where productivity, the thing that we've been chasing for hundreds of years, is fast becoming the problem. How many of you spend your days in the office chained to email? So inbox zero is this sort of hypothetical nirvana that you reach when you empty your inbox. We spend our days answering messages, batting things forwards and backwards. We forgot that that's not everything about work. That's just a part of work. When was the time that you actually stop and think creatively? You start to think about how could we do things differently? How could I innovate the thing that I'm doing here? We don't do that because we're too busy being busy. We've forgotten that whole thing about working smarter, not harder. And now, if you want to be really productive, you work harder, not smarter, because that's the world of work that we live in. We have this one tool, and we want to use it all the time, whereas in reality, we're surrounded by a myriad of different tools. Each one is designed for a different purpose. The challenge now is to break free of the shackles of the QWERTY keyboard design and that whole mindset and start thinking about which is the best communication platform for the message that I'm trying to convey. So that's the sort of the technology piece, but it doesn't really stop there. In fact, the biggest challenge that we face is more about our office space than it is about the tools that we use within them. For the average knowledge worker, you don't need to be in a specific location at a specific point in time to access specific services. You have, most of you, I would guarantee you, looking at some of you even doing it now, have all of the tools that you need in the pocket, in your pocket or in your bag, and you can work from anywhere. And yet, what do? We're so ingrained in working in this way, we still do this insane thing. We commute every day to be in the same place at the same point in time. But we think there's a really different way of working. There's a way where you think of work as an activity rather than simply a destination. And that leads us into this definition of flexible working. We've been talking about flexible working for years. And the problem with flexible working is when I say flexible working, most of you will probably hear working from home. Well, yeah, working from home is a part of it, but actually this is about choosing the location where you want to be. It's also about you taking control of how you work and how you use the tools that are in front of you. And so where we used to talk about the work-life balance and we used to think really binary, I'm at work, I'm at home, the reality of today's society, the reality of what technology affords you the choice of, is you can feather those things. And it's really up to us as a culture, as a society, to see if we're able to make that choice. And then it's back to this other thing about the location that you choose to work. I should be much more thoughtful about, well, based on the tasks that I have to do today, where's the best place for me to be? It might be, let's say I'm writing a big document, might be sat in a library. I often come to the library here, actually, and sit in the sanctuary and just get some real cognitive space to get the work done that I need to. It certainly isn't the best place to go and do it at the office, where I've got all of the distractions and the chaos that presents. So understand that flexible working is so much more, but it relies on you, the human part of this equation, in order to make it happen. And trust is crucial. Absolutely, trust is crucial. And trust works on many levels. We found one of the really interesting things in the studies that we did is actually the biggest issue of trust about people from working outside the office is not between the employer and the employee. It's about the employees amongst themselves. I can't see Dave. He's probably not working. I wonder how his patio's coming on. That kind of mentality. In our studies, what we also showed is that people who weren't working in the office, they carry around this sense of guilt. I'm not in the office. They're going to be thinking I'm working on my patio. So they end up overcompensating. They end up sending more email, making more phone calls in an attempt to be more visible, destroying the advantages of working away from the office. So for most organizations, it's about this really hard thing. It's about having the confidence to let go. The confidence to empower your employees, the people that you work with, to choose the best place to work for the tasks that they have in mind, the best tools, to use them in the way that they want. That's a really scary place to be for most organizations. And trust me, from an IT perspective, it's a hugely scary place to be. So I've painted, hopefully, a bleak picture of how we're actually missing the point about what technology enables a modern society to do. I want to give you some things that hopefully will start to turn this around and some ideas that will really change your thinking about what you too can do inside your organizations. Over Christmas, I was sat in my kitchen and I saw on the kitchen table this beautiful, colourful, ornate piece of paper. And I thought, God, that's really beautiful. Like, what is that? Oh, it's my tax disc. We don't live in a world where the Bobby on the beat or the traffic wardens are peering in through our windscreens looking to see if this piece of paper, as pretty as it is, has been stuffed in my dashboard. What we actually do is we live in a world where technology has enabled us a very different way of working. Every time I go to a petrol station, every time I drive down the motorway, every time I cross a city boundary, a little camera looks at my car, looks at my number plate, and checks it against a central database. So why then is there a multi-million-pound printing industry in Swansea dedicated solely to the creation of these beautifully ornate artifacts of our history? Well, actually, the wonderful thing about the DVLA, who have long been the champions of digital public service, is they got this over Christmas, and they thought, you know what? Actually, why do we do that? Do we need to do that? So they have right now a white paper out that's saying, actually, we can abolish the paper tax disc. Can we do that? What would be the impact if we got rid of this? Because it's no longer, it's redundant in a digital world. And so my challenge to you is if the DVLA can do this for their primary business process, this is the thing that for 100 years has been the sort of the sole source of income for what they do as an organization. And they said, you know what? We live in a different world. We don't have to do this anymore. What is it that you've got inside your organizations where you could do the same? The other part of this is trying to get yourself to think really differently about the potential outcomes. We're sort of constrained by our past experiences. Everything that's happened to us colors what we think about the future, how we think the future is going to play out. But kids think naturally differently about it. And I remember a couple of years ago now, we were doing a piece for Channel 4 News. It was that we were just about to launch the Kinect for the Xbox, and it had, as part of it, voice activation, so I could control my Xbox with my voice. So the night before the interview, I'm being the good corporate spokesperson. I'm doing my homework. I'm sat with my son playing on the Xbox. And we'd got the beta software. Nobody else in the country had got it except for me, and my son were there, and he's like, Xbox, play this game. Xbox, play this DVD. And after about half an hour, he stopped. He ran off into the kitchen. I heard this little voice come out, microwave, make my tea. But the point is, so he's there, and that little bit of magic is something that we need to remain and retain ourselves. When we're thinking about the business problems, when we're thinking about doing things very differently inside our organizations, don't just get constrained by your past experiences. Think about a different world. There's this other thing that affects us. It's called the arrogance of the present. And the arrogance of the present is kind of two things. One is if you ever think, more bandwidth. Who would ever need more bandwidth than I've got right now, right? Brilliant statements of our time. Even Bill Gates, God bless him, who could ever need more than 640 kilobytes of RAM? Arrogance of the present. The other part of the arrogance of the present is if you can't envisage a really different world, then you can't measure the future value of any innovation. We do this as a society every day, lots of technologies. How many of you remember when cameras first started getting put in phones? I do. I remember my reaction, and it was, what? You're going to put a camera in my phone? Well, that's just stupid. It just means all I'm going to have now is a crap phone and a crap camera. Why would you do that? I couldn't envisage a world where people would be walking around the streets of their local community, taking pictures of antisocial behavior, graffiti, fly tipping, that then got sent to the council, who would then come and clean that stuff up. And the point about the arrogance of the present is you can't avoid it. You can just recognize that it exists, and so you can try and think differently about what might happen. It's also really important to remember that this is not Terminator. The computers and the internet is not Skynet. Right? Technology is not out to get us or to replace us. We get this wrong quite often, but technology is here to help us become greater than the sum of our parts. You will see in any local newspaper at any point of the year an article probably accompanied by a picture like this. There will be another picture of a lorry or a bus or something just smacked into a low-hanging bridge. There'll be an interview with the driver, and the driver will probably say, "Sat-nav made me do it." Right? What? When did we say that technology was about doing stuff so that you don't have to? So we'll take all of the cognitive load. You get in your car, you don't have to drive anymore, you sit in the back, have a kip, the sat-nav's going to do it all for you. Because we live in this world where we're complacent, we think technology is going to do stuff for us. Technology, we should be viewing technologies. How do I use this to get further, to do more than I could have done before? If we're going to do that, we have to educate people really differently. We've got to think really differently about what it means to teach people about technology, and not just kids. Everybody. We need to live in a world that thinks about skills, not tools. This is not about teaching people how to use the actual tools of technology. What we should be doing is teaching people how to communicate properly, critical thinking. I have this running joke with my son's headmaster. If I ever catch anybody at school teaching him how to use a word processor or a mouse or a spreadsheet or anything like that, I'm pulling him out of school. What he needs to be able to do is he needs to be able to look at a Wikipedia article. He needs to understand about bias. He needs to understand that it's been crowdsourced. He needs to understand it's been written by an amateur. He needs to understand that if he's going to use any of the facts in that article to bank his homework assignment on, he's going to go and check that fact out somewhere else. These are the skills that not just kids need, but we all need if we're to use the technology effectively. And as we do that, we have to then remember about the organization's role in this. And the organization is actually about seeing the big picture. We spend so long chasing, because of the way we standardize on process, the focus becomes on process itself. We've lost touch with the outcomes of the organization. We forget to take stock, to take a step back and think about what is it actually that we're trying to do here? You know, I know that I'm supposed to be busy being busy and doing all this stuff, and I do this widget that goes to make that process, that goes to make that product. What is our company doing? And that's the final key to all of this, is it's all about us. It's all about people. It's about the individual. It's about being empowered, whether it's being empowered to choose the best place to work, to use the right tools for the right job, to think about what is it that I could contribute to my organization to help them achieve that outcome. If you do those things, then I think you're in a great place to reimagine the way that your business and the way your organization works. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
You talked about envisioning, but then it seemed to me that you were saying that actually there's no point in envisioning because this stuff's all emergent. So just tell me about the relationship between thinking about the future and the fact that what often seems to happen with technology is that what happens organically, emergently as a consequence of people's use. So what's the point in you thinking about 5 years hence?
Yeah.
You've no idea.
Yeah, so well, there are two things. One, you're quite right. We don't need any of the envisioning because we're quite capable of evolving. And I keep picking on email, but email was invented to replace this wonderful analog process called the office memo. And we had this one process, and we thought, oh, here's some new tech. Yeah, we could automate the way we send office memos. And what happens? We now send more office memos. We don't think about whether we should send more office memos or whether they're the right way to do it, because we haven't thought of a different way of work. So this is where envisioning comes in, and the job here is to make you think differently about what's possible. Even if you think what's possible is stupid, nobody would ever work that way. They might work this way. But at least in having that conversation, we've opened your minds up to a very different way of working. And part of our challenge, particularly at Microsoft, is, it's a really dangerous place. If you only ever use Office as an example, the way you've always used Office, then actually, what's the point? What's the point in us, creating all of the innovation, putting opportunities to collaborate differently, if we haven't managed to shift people's minds? And so envisioning is crucial because it's that human focus. It's about, listen, there is a different way that we can do this. And then if you think about that different way, then the technology will follow that goal, rather than just being this iterative, we do the same stuff just slightly better.
I'm just interested in your view about how technology and social norms interact. The way that I'm allowed to behave in my bedroom is different from my living room, is different from when I've got guests in my living room, which is different from when I'm on the street, which is different from when I'm in a shop, which is different from when I'm at someone else's house, right? Yeah. Now, I just know that stuff, right? What is and is not allowed in different technological spaces is a much more problematic thing. Now, given that, as people's workspace and life space kind of overlap in all sorts of ways, isn't this going to lead to constant collisions because the norms that govern these spaces are so completely different?
Absolutely, it is. But this is nothing new. You only know how to behave differently in your environment because over tens, maybe hundreds of years as a society, we've learned the rules. We've learned this thing called etiquette. An example that probably be more familiar to, because it's something that we're at the other end of, is mobile phones. Do you remember when they first came out? And I'd be sat here, maybe not on stage, but I might be talking to Matthew, and my phone would ring. And because it was a new thing, right, I'd be like, listen, I know this is interesting and everything, but somebody's phoned me. I'm going to just be with you in a minute. Right?
I still do that.
Yeah. But mostly, we've become better. We know about silent mode or voicemail, and so actually we let it go. When was the last time you were in a movie theatre or an event like this where somebody's phone went off? I can't remember the last time that happened, because as a society, we've evolved. We've got better at how we handle that etiquette. We've seen it even happen in the courts, really. Look at the sort of the journey that we've been on and how people respond to Twitter usage. The law catches up. We know that, I think, every day 4 people are arrested for basically being obnoxious on the internet, for trolling, for being sort of for hate crimes and those sorts of things. That says that we understand this stuff and we evolve. But to think this is new, well, the tools might be new, but actually the whole process of evolving etiquette is something that we've always done as a society.
Can I ask you to thank our great speaker, Dave Coplin?
Thank you.